Miguel's voice floated through the crowded streets of Manila, rising above the noise of rushing jeepneys and vendors calling out their prices. At just 12 years old, he stood barefoot on the cracked pavement, clutching a worn-out microphone connected to a small speaker someone had given him. The coins dropped into his tin can were never much, but every peso mattered. It meant rice for dinner, medicine for his mother, or school supplies he could barely afford. His father had passed away years earlier, leaving his mother to shoulder the weight of survival. She worked long hours, but her health was failing, and Miguel knew he had to help. Singing was all he had, yet he poured his entire soul into every note, hoping the sincerity of his voice would reach people's hearts. Despite the harsh reality of hunger and tired nights, Miguel never lost his smile. He sang with eyes closed, imagining a bigger stage somewhere far away, where people listened not just out of pity, but because they truly believed in him. In those moments, the cracked pavement became a grand theater, and the headlights of passing cars looked like spotlights shining just for him. Strangers often paused, touched by his voice, some even shedding quiet tears. Miguel would bow politely, whispering a soft, "thank you," as if their kindness was worth more than the money they dropped. Deep inside, he carried a fragile but unshakable dream, that one day his voice could change not just his own life, but his mother's too. One humid afternoon, as Miguel sang on his usual corner, a tourist stopped in his tracks. Unlike most passers-by, the man didn't just drop a coin, he pulled out his phone and began recording. Miguel sang with his eyes closed, his voice trembling with raw emotion, unaware that this performance would soon change his life. By the time he finished, the stranger was visibly moved. He patted Miguel's shoulder, gave him a warm smile, and promised, "The world needs to hear you." Within days, the video found its way onto social media. What began as a single clip quickly spread across platforms, drawing millions of views. Comments flooded in from people around the world who couldn't believe such a powerful voice belonged to a boy who sang on the streets. Strangers wrote messages of encouragement, some even offering to help. Then came an email that seemed almost unreal. Producers from America's Got Talent had seen the video and wanted Miguel to audition. His mother read the message twice, her hands trembling as tears rolled down her cheeks. But there was a problem. Plane tickets to the United States cost far more than they had. Desperate yet determined, Miguel's mother began selling what little they owned, her wedding ring, the family's old radio, even the few pieces of furniture in their tiny home. Every sale hurt, but with each sacrifice, she whispered to herself, "This is for Miguel's dream." Finally, with enough saved for a ticket, mother and son prepared to leave the only world they had ever known. A new journey was about to begin. The bright lights of Los Angeles were nothing like the dim streets Miguel had grown up on. As he stepped onto the America's Got Talent stage, his heart pounded so loudly he feared the judges might hear it. His clothes were simple, an oversized shirt and worn shoes donated by a kind stranger, but his eyes held a quiet fire. The audience, thousands of faces he had never seen, loomed before him. For a moment, Miguel felt smaller than ever. One of the judges leaned forward with a gentle smile and asked, "What brings you here today?" Miguel gripped the microphone with both hands, his voice soft but steady. "I'm singing for my mom, and for kids like me, who dream even when life is hard." His words drew a hush over the room. The music began, and at first his voice shook, barely rising above the melody. But then something shifted. Miguel closed his eyes, remembering the nights he sang to distract his mother from her pain, the mornings he sang to earn their next meal. Each note carried his story, the grief of losing his father, the hunger he had endured, and the love that kept him going. The theater grew silent, as though the world itself had stopped to listen. Judges leaned back in awe, audience members clutched tissues, and some wiped tears they couldn't hold back. Miguel, lost in the song, no longer felt fear. For the first time, he wasn't a poor boy from Manila, he was an artist standing in his destiny. As Miguel reached the final note, his voice soared so high and pure it seemed to pierce every heart in the theater. The audience erupted into applause before the music had even ended, many rising from their seats with tears streaming down their faces. Miguel, overwhelmed, stood frozen, clutching the microphone as though it were the only thing anchoring him to the ground. One judge placed a hand over her chest, visibly shaken, while another leaned forward, his eyes glistening. Then, without hesitation, one judge slammed the golden buzzer. The sound echoed like thunder, and in an instant, gold confetti rained down from above, swirling around Miguel like a shower of dreams finally coming true. The crowd leapt to their feet in a roaring standing ovation, their cheers blending with Miguel's sobs of disbelief. He dropped to his knees, covering his face, unable to contain the flood of emotions. From the side of the stage, his mother rushed forward, tears rolling freely as she wrapped him in a tight embrace. They held on to each other as though the world outside had disappeared, both trembling under the weight of the moment. The judges rose, applauding along with the audience, some still wiping away tears. For Miguel, the golden buzzer was not just a ticket to the next round, it was proof that his struggles, his sacrifices, and his dreams had meaning. The barefoot boy from Manila was no longer invisible. He had been seen, heard, and celebrated by the world. When the confetti finally settled and the cheers softened, Miguel wiped his tears and took a shaky step forward. The judges were still standing, their eyes fixed on him with admiration. The host handed him the microphone, and for a moment he couldn't find the words. His chest rose and fell quickly as he looked out at the thousands of faces cheering for him, then turned to his mother, who nodded with pride. With a trembling voice, Miguel finally spoke. This is not just for me," he said, his words echoing through the theater. "This is for my mom, who never stopped believing. And for every child who feels invisible, who thinks their dreams don't matter. Don't stop dreaming. Because one day, someone will listen." The audience roared once more, louder than before, the message hitting deeper than even his song. People clapped, whistled, and cried, inspired by the boy who had carried his struggles with such grace. Judges shook their heads in awe, one saying, "You didn't just sing, you reminded us all of what hope sounds like." As Miguel and his mother walked off stage, still holding hands, the cameras captured his smile, fragile, tear-stained, but full of light. That moment would be replayed across millions of screens, touching lives far beyond the theater. The poor Filipino boy who once sang on the streets had now sung his way into the world's heart, leaving behind a timeless reminder: no dream is too small, and no voice is ever too powerless to be heard.